All right, what's up, eco hackers? Welcome back to the craziest interrogation you'll ever see. I'm CS Joseph, and this is my reaction video, part two, where we're going to be psychoanalyzing the interrogation process of these criminals as presented to us by the Explore With Us YouTube channel. I recommend you guys like and subscribe them, and as much as you would like to subscribe my channel, because their channel is pretty awesome. So, and hopefully one day they can actually notice the high quality commentary that I'm providing to that end, so that they can also improve their analysis of what's actually happening. So yeah, just get a little background. I do have experience with interrogation. I have assisted law enforcement as well as attorneys in criminal cases in the past, and it is definitely part of my skill set, although most people don't really actually know about that. Most people just think like I'm just a clone of Frank James or Nathan Glass or Dave's superpowers, blah blah blah, here in the MBTI YouTube blogosphere. But the reality of the situation is that no, I'm actually a cut above, because I'm actually a professional who does this kind of line of work and has done that throughout my career. So yeah. So we're just going to continue on where we left off. The timestamp we left off yesterday was 21:08 in this particular video, and we're just going to keep going from here. And also special thanks also to those of you in the audience who have reached out and given me links for future interrogations to analyze. Also, if you guys have any like relationship or marriage counseling, drama, etc., maybe that somehow led to a murder case in some cases, that way we can get more sexuality related content on top of doing these types of analysis, that would be great. We definitely want to see more of that as well. And as always, make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, and then hitting the alarm bell. My streams, I will never schedule a stream. I just want to make that very clear. I will never, ever schedule a stream. It will just happen when it happens, and that's just the reality of it. So don't ever expect me to schedule anything. And in some cases, streams may be taken down just as quickly as they're put up. So keep that in mind as well. Yeah, I could do that for politics and economics and market investing. I have actually done that for people privately in the past, but I might actually make it a source of content as well and just kind of go through that. But you know, the reality of the situation is that YouTube needs to start seeing CS Joseph as the rain bolt of psychology, basically. So whatever amount of content we have to produce to that end, we're actually going to do that. So yeah. Anyway, let's get on with the show. Let's get on with the show. Why would I take down a stream? Because I might put it behind a paywall. It happens. So just be aware of that, folks. All right. Let's get this show on the road. So remember, this is Miss Ellen. And Ellen here is an ISFP, and her interrogator is an ESFJ. Ellen seems to be somewhat subjugating. I would put her as UD-UF or UD-SF specifically. Who knows how greedy she is, but it's likely she's UD-UF. And she's in a sexual relationship with Gavin, who is a suspected ENTP. And she also conspired to murder her ISTP father, at least alleged ISTP father, along with some guy named Russell, who is a confirmed ENTP UD-UF. So we're just going to continue on with the interrogation process, and we'll see where it is. Now, if you remember where we left off yesterday, the interrogator finally got this woman basically into her shadow successfully, and that's where we've left off. So let's continue from there.
Oh. Yeah. Do you go to school?
No.
No. What's the last grade you completed?
12.
You completed 12th grade?
Detective Smith begins to ask background questions to establish Ellen's behavioral baseline, or the behavior she normally displays when answering fact-based questions. Later in the interrogation, when she poses questions relevant to the crime, she will...
Okay, so if ever you find yourself actually the target of an interrogation, this is absolutely critical. This is very critical. If you ever find yourself like within an interrogation and you yourself are being interrogated, you need to make sure that you are going out of your way to prevent this from happening, because this is establishing behavior baseline is absolutely critical to the interrogator's goal. You need to make sure that you continue to follow your Miranda rights as serious as possible. Don't talk without your lawyer present, because if you allow the interrogator to establish a behavior baseline, you're entirely screwed. You are entirely screwed. If I was this woman, I would turn around and face the wall, basically, and close my eyes and even plug my ears or whatever. Obviously, plugging your ears is probably a bad choice, but the point is that you have to become practiced in ignoring. This is opening your mouth in any capacity is a bad idea, and this is another example where Ellen here is basically like she is entirely selling herself downriver at this point. So yeah.
Look for behaviors that diverge from Ellen's behavioral baseline when Ellen responds. We will expand on the formal technique of this concept later in the interrogations.
These are true stories. These are not fiction.
How old are you?
18.
Okay. All right. Where did you go to school?
South Medford High School.
When did you graduate?
Last year. Class of 27. This year, sorry. Class.
All right, guys, what kind of question is that? What kind of question is that? Does murder happen because UDF people get UDF friends? No. And UDF people are more likely to commit heinous crimes towards self or others. And then there's another question: are there any personality types who are more likely to have ASPD or personal disorders? Okay, folks, here's the reality. If you want me to answer a question, I don't know, throw in $20, $50 or something in a super chat, and then I'll take a look. But seriously, keep the questions either on relevant. So.
In 2017, I graduated with an honors diploma.
That's exciting.
Okay, look at that. She's got that achievement, God function of extroverted thinking coming out right there. Look, I achieved this thing, so I'm an important person, right, within her realm of influence, right? That's going to probably be important later for the interrogator to take advantage of that. This is a situation where Ellen is being really stupid by even allowing this establishment of a baseline.
As we know, Ellen is lying.
Because it's bait. It is bait. The bait is basically the interrogator is trying to establish rapport. Always is trying to establish rapport. Always trying to establish baseline so they can compare one stream of consciousness to another, right? And we talk about stream of consciousness a lot in the Ego Hacking by Text course. We talk about it mostly in the How to Type Yourself course as well from a psychoanalysis perspective. HowToTypeYourself.com or EgoHackingByText.com, so you guys can get these courses. But the reality of the situation is that this is really, really bad for Ellen right now.
When she answers most of these questions.
Because what makes it bait is that the prisoner in this particular moment is assuming that, it's just innocent questions, right? No, there's not a single word coming out of the interrogator's mouth that is innocent. And then the prisoner is trying to project their own self-sense of innocence in the situation by trying to make themselves look more innocent by answering questions, when the reality of the situation, it's not. It's actually making it worse. And in front of a grand jury, they're literally hanging themselves.
Because we know she's lying, we can see the way Ellen expresses herself non-verbally when she lies based on facts. 1. Ellen's time.
Yeah. Nonverbal communication is a thing. That's why it's important that if you're in an interrogation situation, literally just put your face in the corner and don't let anyone see your face and just stay there. Sometimes they might actually, so in order to avoid that, because the interrogator's not getting any information out of you, at that moment, what they will do is they will chain you down to a chair and chain you down to the table, basically, to force you to face the interrogator. In which case, at that point in time, you may as well just tip your head back and then close your eyes and look up, and then just be as unresponsive as possible.
Tone drops and flattens, a notable deviation in her paralanguage.
Do you go to school?
No.
No.
Those deviations in paralanguage, this is something extroverted sensors pick up on, and maybe an extroverted sensing critic on an ESFJ would pick up on. So it's just something for you folks to be aware of.
What's the last grade you completed?
In terms of interrogation, though, I'm of the opinion that the INTP archetype is hands down the best interrogator. Like they're just wicked good, like insanely good.
12.
2. Her eyebrows raise. 3. This is a cluster of nonverbal indicators. Ellen looks up and to the right.
Is it legal for them to do that? Absolutely, it's legal. They can do whatever they want. Like, if you people literally think that police care about your Bill of Rights, your Bill of Rights is comatose. Police, when you're in their custody, they can do anything they want to you. They can beat you, and nothing bad will happen to them, okay? They can take your property, they can take your property, they can harm you physically, and there is nothing that will happen to them. They can get away with all of that, okay? So, like, just make sure that you understand that in the United States of America, the Bill of Rights, when it comes to police, is entirely comatose. It means nothing.
She smiles, laughs as she answers, and then moves her hands apart.
When did you graduate?
Last year.
4. We can see another cluster when she corrects her lie with another lie. This time we can tell she's more flustered. She scrunches her face to the point that she closes.
Okay, something to note was that when you're in these situations with like the face scrunching and whatnot, that's usually indication of cognitive transition, a rapid cognitive transition between the ego and the shadow, because it's literally your brain is starting to use a different set of sensing functions, essentially. And her SE parent is having a very hard time navigating her cognitive orbit between extroverted sensing parent and introverted sensing critic to be able to, and then it's actually coming out physically from this perspective.
Her eyes. She false starts. We see her eyebrows drop dramatically. She rapidly shakes her head back and forth, and finally, she aggressively flicks her hair out of her face and tilts her head back. 5. Last, we see another eyebrow raise.
What kind of classes did you take?
AP.
AP what?
AP
She's so proud of AP.
American Studies.
Her admitting that she's AP or this, and they're like, oh, look at me, I'm intelligent, right? That just, again, makes her look worse in the eyes of a grand jury, because it's like, well, clearly you had the means to commit this murder and plan this murder because you're so intelligent. Oh my God. Like, once again, extroverted thinking inferior on the part of an ISFP continuing to fail. We should probably do Jeffrey Epstein's interrogation, actually. I think that would give you guys like a very good perspective on how to actually properly do an interrogation, because Jeffrey Epstein did an amazing job getting through his interrogation. An amazing job. That is the correct way to do it. Compared to this. This is terrible. This is absolutely terrible.
AP Human Geography, AP Psychology, AP Biology.
Goodness.
Pretty much everything I could take.
Yeah. And I know you live with your sisters, because I know somebody else has talked with them today. I didn't talk to them. And who else do you live with?
Just them.
Ellen responds, just them, and she sounds more.
Oh, yes. Yeah, just them talking, because she already knows that her father is basically dead. This is where TI Demon is making a mistake, telling the truth and whatnot. This is the thing about ISFPs. Like, ISFPs, what's really interesting about FI Hero is that as long as you're just patient with them, eventually they will literally just confess everything, because in order for an FI hero to actually be able to, like, within the context of an ISFP, INFPs are different, but in ISFPs, because of extroverted sensing parent being so external, they have a lot of pressure in their heads to be honest with their FI hero, with what they're concealing. So if you're just patient, you can actually just push that SI critic over and over and over and over and over and over until TI Demon just finally gives up and they expose themselves. And this is where she's starting to crack, as a result of that consistent pressure, even though the interrogator is just trying to establish baseline right now.
Or emotionally expressive. She may have a soft spot for her sisters. The investigator seems to think so. Is she?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The investigator is doing a great job taking advantage of extroverted feeling nemesis being worried about her sisters, while also the investigator is projecting her own ISFP shadow onto this girl. Them choosing, the police department choosing this particular interrogator was a master stroke on their part. They did a great job.
She often includes them in her questioning.
And my mother.
Okay. Where do you live?
And my mother. Okay.
In the area. I don't know the exact address.
So you live with your sisters and your mom, and you graduated last year. And you were walking down the street, it sounds like, today?
Mm-hmm.
Graduated last year. Isn't she 15? She's lying.
Who were you with?
I was with my friends.
Okay. And I wasn't there, so I really don't know.
Yeah.
Who are your friends?
And okay. And I wasn't there, SI parent. I really don't know TI inferior. Okay. That was a trap. So what happened is that the interrogator just switched her strategy entirely. So what she did is that she just she's been leading Ellen into her ESFJ shadow, basically, and then all of a sudden threw in this red herring just now to get Ellen to go right back up into her ego again, okay? And this is what really good interrogators actually do, is try to get people to switch back and forth between their ego and their shadow, back and forth, and almost get to the point where they could do it on command, because what this allows them to do is that once they see the baseline for both streams of consciousness, basically, between the ego and the superego, but the superego is very expressive through the shadow, basically, so it looks like it's the ego and the shadow doing it. At that moment in time, it's very easy to see where the truth and the lies are based on doing this rope-a-dope type of communication, because she just presented a statement saying, well, I wasn't there, SI parent, I don't know this, TI inferior, which then immediately engages extroverted sensing parents' pessimism and extroverted thinking inferior's pessimism, but it's stated in a way to produce comfort. And as a result, Ellen here, the prisoner, is absorbing that from the interrogator, with the interrogator knowing full well it's actually going to cause her to open up that much more and then just hang herself on even more, just giving her more rope.
Friends.
The two males that have also been detained.
Okay. Who are they to you?
Okay, the two males that have been detained. Okay, so this is extroverted sensing parent. She's back in her ego.
They're friends.
Okay.
They are friends. That's TE inferior. She's still in her ego.
What are their names?
I'm not going to give their names.
Okay, and I child.
Unless I'm there, she only trusts me as a lawyer.
Okay.
Okay, unless I'm there, she only trusts me as her lawyer. Typical ENTP UDUF response. The ENTP, again, has no idea that unless you are bar certified as a person, it is illegal for you to practice law or represent somebody else. Typical ENTP crap, which, in my opinion, I think it's morally wrong that that society even allows that to exist. Anyone should be allowed to represent anyone, in my opinion.
So what have you been up to today?
I haven't been home, and now I'm really concerned about what's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I haven't been home. SI, I'm really concerned about what's going on. Okay, so extroverted feeling nemesis and a little bit of SE parent there. So she's going back into her shadow in order to defend herself and look like some sort of supportive, caring person. Because again, remember at the very last stream that we did on this particular case, she was in ENTJ subconscious, and ENTJ subconscious did not work out for her at all, like not even remotely.
Ellen puts up her defenses. In a setting outside of an interrogation, defensiveness naturally elicits a negative response from the listener. Detective Smith is trained to employ the resistance countering technique, reframing. In this instance, she utilizes reframing to refocus Ellen's attention on something more positive.
Okay, that's literally what I just talked about. Reframing is basically throwing out that red herring to get her back out of her shadow, back into her ego, and then she's going to keep putting her back into her shadow, her unconscious again.
Positivity assists with resetting the flow of conversation.
Resetting the flow of the conversation. I do this all the time when I'm doing social engineering or even interrogation. It's super easy. I even reset the flow of conversation. You guys can actually watch me do it on typing random people on the street, because sometimes I'll throw out red herrings in there to adjust their stream of consciousness to see if they'll go back to where they were or if they'll start a new stream of consciousness baseline. Because what that does is that determines if they were already pre-cognitive transition to begin with, or as in if they were not in their ego when they first started talking to me, or if they're in their ego now, or if they actually were in their ego to begin with, because a person will naturally go back to their ego if you hit certain pressure points. For example, their extroverted functions.
Prevents defensiveness from building and increases efficient information gathering. This tactic draws from the field of positive psychology, which arose from the idea that reorienting focus and reframing perspectives away from negativity.
Where were you?
Out.
Like out.
Okay, where were you? Out. Okay. Is that direct? Is that informative?
Where?
Just out and about.
Just out and about. Okay, that's a TI demon response. Okay, she's way back into her shadow right now in an effort to defend herself.
Couldn't sleep.
When Ellen lied about graduating from South Medford High School,
I graduated with an honors diploma.
she stated that she had graduated with an honors diploma, an identity lie. This is unnecessary detail. In contrast, her responses here are short and vague.
Like out where?
Yeah, okay. This is great. I'm glad they did this. So on the left, basically, an identity lie, sure, but it's still FITE. It's still attached to her ego versus the other side, the short and vague. You know, this is ESFJ unconscious talking.
Just out and about.
She's unable to provide any detail. An investigative team will analyze amounts of detail and specificity in the context of what suspects say. They might note that Ellen was overly specific.
Yeah, guys, this is why you just don't talk. You just don't do anything. You try to conceal as many responses as you possibly can. Like when you are being interrogated, it's no different than playing poker. Just seriously.
Specific when she provided detail when Detective Smith didn't prompt her to. Honors diploma.
Very good, capable poker players are definitely the hardest to interrogate. The best interrogators in the world, absolutely, in my opinion, are INTPs, but the hardest people to interrogate are ISTPs, for sure.
They might also note that Ellen was overly vague when the investigator.
I can still do it. You just have to target their FE inferior over and over and over again and just slam it into the wall over and over and over again. But, yeah.
Prompted her to be specific, her actions. Both warrant attention in an interrogative environment.
Where's the last place you slept?
At the house.
At your mom's house?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've talked to your mom. You know that? She's super worried about you.
Okay, we talked to your mom. She's super worried about you. Again, making a play at the extroverted feeling critic.
She's so worried about you.
Or nemesis.
Detective Smith shares that she knows Ellen is lying, but follows with an empathy statement. There is no perceptible response from Ellen, but it's clear Detective Smith is still trying to earn Ellen's trust and break the ice. This is an attempt to make an emotional connection, but Ellen holds steadfast, maintaining her resistance.
I would actually like to speak truth today. Okay? I think that your mom is, it's been a long time since I've seen a parent like.
It's just so ridiculous that Ellen's expert intuition trickster cannot even see the intention from the interrogator, like at all.
Your mom was today. She was on her knees on the ground, sobbing.
Okay, now remember, folks, the police have every right to lie to you. You have no right to lie to the police. Lying to the police, I mean, that's jail time. You can't lie to them, but they can lie to you legally. So in this moment, like, it's like, okay, well, that might be bullshit or whatever, but, you know, when it comes to extroverted thinking women, they typically are very good at listening and absorbing that information and then using that to weigh out how they provide their feedback through their FI hero. So the fact that Ellen is so willing to listen, even though she looks innocent and whatnot, again, she's just being given more rope to hang herself.
Because that's how worried she is about you. So I do know that that's not where you spent last night.
All right, so SE Critic kind of comes in and does the smackdown.
So where'd you spend last night?
I didn't sleep last night.
So where's the last place you slept?
My mother and my father's house.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've talked to your mom, and so I know that you hadn't been staying there.
Right, it's my father's weekend. I go back and forth, though, because my father is a little bit abusive.
Okay.
Ellen mentioned her father's abusive behavior relatively out of context. Her parents shared joint custody, which explains why she went back and forth between their houses. Further, her response bared no relevance to the question. Consider that...
Yeah, it's just classic ESFJ shadow smoke screening at that point. Because, again, it's not relevant, it's overly informative, and relevance is part of extroverted sensing. Her extroverted sensing parent, you know, if she wasn't trying to hide her ego at this moment or hide herself, she'd be answering very relevantly, but she's not. The fact that she's not relevant is, again, another example of how she's lying. And folks, when you know someone's type and you could see their behaviors from this, it's very easy to figure out if someone is lying to you or not lying to you. It's super, super simple. This is just an example.
Ellen conspired to kill her father and very recently encouraged and stood by as her boyfriend murdered him, lifted his body into the trunk of her father's car, and threw it over an embankment. Her statement regarding her father's abusive behavior extends beyond a lack of remorse, resembling something more like revenge. When investigators spoke to Ellen's old friends,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if she was being more relevant with extroverted sensing parent as well as extroverted thinking inferior, anti-child could not help but, you know, through its attachment to her father, could not help but actually like cry with FI hero basically, but it's not happening. That's how you know that, like, that's just more evidence that she's obviously lying.
they shared that she had been consistently confiding in them about the abuse.
I know that he was kind of rough on her, and she said that he would, like, emotionally abusive and physically abusive, but I'm not sure how true that is.
What she would bring up is things weren't they were not good at her household. She felt her dad wanted to kill her. He started getting abusive. He started mistreating her sisters and her.
When the Medford PD posted details surrounding the crime and suspects on their Facebook timeline, there was an outpouring of mourning and kind words for Aaron. Many comments portrayed Aaron as the opposite of abusive, stating, Aaron cared more about his girls than anything. Members of the Friday...
Typical of extroverted feeling inferior ISTPs. You know, the claim of abuse, that's the thing about ISFPs you have to realize, is that ISFPs, statistically, male or female, are the most physically abusive in the home compared to all the rest of the types, with the ESFP as a close second, and then also the RAF types, ENFP and ISTJ. But by far, it's the ISFP who is the most physically abusive, especially to children. So in reality, she's projecting her UDUF self onto her father and using that as a way to draw justification in the eyes of others for her to actually move forward with this murder. Because again, to an extroverted thinking inferior or to a feeling perceiver type, it's all about what other people believe, not necessarily what is true. Who cares what is true? It's all about what people believe. And if I could live my life based on what people believe, then I could be successful, including when it comes to committing murder, which is how they set themselves up for failure every single time anyway.
Her family and the Medford community were shocked.
So what's the last house you left from?
My father's house.
Okay.
Okay, she just... God, Ellen is so dumb. She is so dumb here. The interrogator has her like so good.
And when did you leave there?
About noon.
Okay. And then where'd you go?
Okay, so this is now where the interrogator has already established baseline. She already has the data that she needs to compare stream of consciousness at this point. So now what she's doing is moving on to the next phase, which is identifying potential alibis or potential lies for alibis, basically. Because right now she's just gathering evidence for the district attorney to nail this girl, basically, against the wall in front of a grand jury at this point. So that's what's going on.
Just wherever I felt like going. I just went for a walk, and I didn't stop walking.
So today is Monday.
Yes, I believe that her ISTP father was not actually abusive and she's making it up. Yes.
It is 11:30.
Okay, so I've been awake for almost 24 hours.
So you left at noon. What day?
Sunday,
Okay.
yesterday.
And what was going on
Like every answer should be, I plead the fifth.
before you left the house?
Detective Smith is attempting to establish timelines, but this proves difficult due to Ellen's continued lying and evasion.
My father.
Yeah, but look, it's not really that big of a deal, Mr. Narrator, because all Ellen has to do with this recording is just prove how much of a liar this girl actually is, which she is doing well. I mean, it's just already mounting evidence to the benefit of the district attorney prosecution in front of a grand jury. Like it's not that big of a deal. The thing about SI Critic is you just have to wait it out, because SI Critic likes to imagine itself that it can wait you out, but it never can. It absolutely can never do that.
Father was very upset about something.
What was he upset about?
I can't recall. He has very violent outbursts.
Okay, now she's back in the ENTJ subconscious. She thinks now that she can control the situation based on her abusive narrative, and that's what she's running with. So she believes, this girl believes that her claim of her father being emotionally and physically abusive to her, that claim enables her to basically use her subjugation side of her unconscious development within her octogram. And it's like, oh, now I can resume dominance over this conversation because I can just stick to that narrative and I'm safe, basically. And now she's cognitive transition into her ENTJ side to be able to actually foment that specific narrative. Notice how she feels super in control, super powerful right now, and it's just ENTJ. And then let's watch the ESFJ bring out their INTP to be like,
Okay.
My dog was hit by a car because he smashed a glass table onto my dog, and the gate was open, so my dog ran outside and he got hit by a car.
My goodness, when did that happen?
Fair warning, folks, FI heroes are quite vengeful people. Just letting you know.
A couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
They love them some retribution. Even if and here's the thing, even if nothing actually happened, even if nothing actually occurred, if they delusionally believed something did happen, they will apply retribution to you and harm you, even if it's something they imagine you do and you never actually did it. Just give you guys a heads up. That is a risk. That is a consistent risk with FI Parent. That's literally why TI pessimistics like myself and this interrogator, Detective Smith, even exists.
So what was going on yesterday to make you leave?
Just didn't really like the environment. I just didn't like
I didn't like the environment. Okay. So now she's back in her ego.
the vibe.
Okay.
Didn't like the vibe. That's a little bit of an any trickster statement, but it's still within her ego.
So who was home when you left?
You can kind of see like how her hands are shifting down below, and it's almost as if she's having a physical response every time she cognitive transitions between the four sides of her mind in every case, which is really fascinating. Yeah. Okay.
My sister.
Yeah, FI heroes have extreme grudges, really big grudges that they could deal with, especially if they're unconscious developed, because then it's like their extroverted feeling nemesis believes like they have ethical justification as to why it's okay for them to do this. So, all right, 1 second, I need to check something. Take a quick little break here. So. Okay. All right, let's verify that the stream is working properly. Cool. Let's move on.
Pictures of my dad.
Okay.
Where's my dad now?
All right, this is where she starts being like, where's my dad now? Even though she basically already admitted informatively that she knows her dad is dead, like moments ago.
Ellen attempts to act as though she's concerned about her father, but she fails badly.
Yeah, she does fail badly. I mean, that concern should have happened, like right at the beginning.
Consider which behavioral cues indicate deception and post the timestamps in the comments.
I don't know.
Okay. TI inferior is trying to keep her in her ego.
So you leave.
So her hands are moving like that. Nice indicator of rapid cognitive transition between all sides of the mind. She's basically panicking right now because her brain does not know which side of the mind with which to utilize to establish getting out of the situation.
Leave. What door did you leave out of?
The front door.
Okay. And did you tell anybody you were leaving?
No.
Okay, that's a lie because she actually said goodbye to her sisters.
And then where'd you go?
Turn here. Turn there.
Okay. So that is basically her claiming that she's not paying attention to anything. That is probably an ego statement, I would say. Trying to look like the innocent little girl.
Just kind of wandering around town.
Trying to claim NI child. She's still in her ego.
Ellen describes walking and seeing the nearby market, though she says her memory is fuzzy.
My memory is pretty fuzzy though.
Okay. Yeah, SI critic. Oh my God.
But,
And she claims she doesn't remember much else.
and then what else did you see?
Nature.
Nature. That was pretty direct response. Still into her ENTJ subconscious, trying to imagine that she's in control of the situation. Which, let's be honest, she's not.
Preceding interrogation, investigators may engage in an exercise termed perspective taking. They place themselves in the suspect's shoes. Suspects will often prepare themselves to answer.
Okay, yeah, but perspective taking is really only something that's available to introverted thinking interrogators and investigators, which, to be fair, INTPs are the best at this.
Questions that are central to the crime.
They can absorb someone else's perspective entirely because of extroverted sensing trickster. It allows them to see that much more, psychologically speaking, but then also because of their extroverted feeling inferior and their extrovert intuition parent able to actually create the scenario in their mind. It's almost as if they're creating a thought experiment.
Crime they committed. By viewing the situation from suspects' perspectives, investigators are more likely to determine what questions suspects might expect or not expect, establish a behaviors to make off guard.
I ran into them.
Where were you when you saw them?
Can't remember.
So I
Stop answering questions.
feel a little bit, tiny bit like we might just be like playing cat and mouse and going back and forth. Okay.
In addition to displaying high levels of resistance, Ellen pushes back at the investigator. She exhibits prolonged eye contact. This is a confrontational behavior,
Yeah, SE parent is basically pissed off.
indicating aggressiveness. She will continue.
Because SE parent's like, why are you not buying my SI critic performance right now? Like, why are you not buying my stoic position?
To do this periodically throughout the interrogation.
Your sisters have actually been already talked to by somebody, and they're pretty.
Okay, your sisters have been talked to, blah, blah, blah. Like, here's the thing. When you're being interrogated and they're saying they're saying statements like, oh, your sisters have talked to her, we talked to this person, or blah, 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 blah. You don't know if that's true. You don't know if that's accurate. You don't know. You have no clue. Like, interrogators could say anything. They could say anything to you. Come on.
Be good on their time when they saw you, because
They could literally tell you that Goku showed up and went Super Saiyan and knocked a car out of the way. Like, no.
they were getting up and alarms were set and looking at tablets and things like that.
Okay.
And so, you know, I just
Okay, SI critics saying this is not relevant to me.
want to have an honest conversation with you.
Just want to have an honest conversation with you. NI trickster talking to any trickster.
I think that your sisters are beyond scared, beyond
Okay, I think your sisters are beyond. This is TI inferior in any child.
worried.
Talking about and then worried, trying to hit her effing nemesis. So she's hitting her sensitive pieces in her ego and also starting to get back into shadow. So she's actually hitting both sides of the mind simultaneously.
Okay.
Whereas she's been pretty pointed on one side at a time. Now she's going for like the multi-pronged attack and hitting two sides simultaneously.
Like, for instance, the dog.
When you're trying to establish baseline as an interrogator, that's really important because of different streams of consciousness. And then this is how you are actually trying to force them out of their baseline.
Dog. Where's the dog?
Where is my dog?
Where is my dog? Okay, yeah. Showing concern.
What's his name? Squeakerbeak or something?
Sparklebeak.
Sparklebeak.
Where is he?
You tell me.
You tell me, SE critic.
Where's my dog?
I don't know. Where is Sparklebeak?
No.
Okay, well,
Trying to do the cute woman cover up.
for me to have an answer about where Sparklebeak is, I don't. Because you're actually the one that took Sparklebeak.
I took him for a
You're actually this.
walk around the block and
So they killed the dog, huh? That's really effed up. She killed her own dog. Wow. Unbelievable.
then I dropped him back off.
Oh my gosh. It just can show you just how bad ISFPs can get. It's appalling.
Sparklebeak is not anywhere to be found. Your sisters remember you taking... Your sisters actually remember you taking him this morning and walking out the door with Sparklebeak.
It would be so nice if we could just see the facial expressions of the ESFJ right now. This is one of the ways that this is failing as a stream or as a video.
I think only you know the answer to that.
No, I don't.
It would be nice.
No, I don't. Okay. Now, what's happening here is, and this is something that's really subtle, but what's happening here is that this is SE parent basically saying, I don't know about this. I'm not able to perceive this because I'm trying to perceive in the moment. Versus the ESFJ interrogator, Detective Smith, is like, I am perceiving the past right now. I'm trying to perceive your past. But SE parent keeps trying to hold it in the present because then she can claim ignorance because it's in the present, right? She can claim ignorance because he's not in front of me right now, so I don't know what's happening. And this is how her ego is trying to defend itself from this perspective, because it's how ISFPs oftentimes pretend. They're very good at pretend, extremely good at it. And right now, she is pretending because to have this out of sight, out of mind defense when it comes to the fact that she has no idea where her dog is, right?
To be able to at least let Sierra and Olivia know.
I don't know.
Okay. Do you have a boyfriend?
My
How did Ellen get this way? That's a very good question. I am not entirely sure. She is exhibiting signs of UDUF, and UDUF does not happen on its own. her claims about her father being abusive is one thing, but oftentimes ISFPs project the sources of abuse to the wrong people. It's possible actually that it's her mother who abused her, or somebody else abused her and has been abusing her consistently. So that can be a problem. If only we could actually see what type of mother she is, of what her mother is, that might actually give us some additional clues as to what's going on. Because we might be able to understand the psychological pathology as to why she got to this mental place as a 15-year-old girl.
Parents made us break up.
Oh, they did? Tell me about that.
They just didn't like him.
Mm-hmm.
Note that Detective Smith is skilled at asking very open-ended questions to entice Ellen to speak. Open-ended questions encourage narratives that are...
Open-ended questions also create stream of consciousness and allow you to analyze baseline.
...rich in detail and allow investigators to collect further information and insight related to the case.
How'd you meet him?
School.
At South? Okay. And so you've been out of school for a bit,
Mhm.
but your parents didn't like him?
Yeah.
How come they didn't like him?
I don't
Because he took your virginity, that's why.
know.
Well, you must have had some kind of conversation about why your parents don't like your boyfriend.
They're just like, we don't like this guy, get rid of him.
So what did you do?
I ended it.
What was that boyfriend's name?
Gavin.
Justin.
What's his last name?
Can't remember. I wasn't dating him for very long. Maybe 2 weeks.
My
You
God.
don't know your boyfriend of 2 weeks' last name.
No.
We could find him in a yearbook, though.
Oh, okay.
Don't you think?
Oh, okay.
Okay. You didn't have any other boyfriend.
No.
Yeah, yearbooks are consistently utilized as evidence in these cases.
Every detail holds the potential to be significant. The nonverbal indicator that follows is very subtle, almost unnoticeable.
I've had a few, weak relationships, but I don't really consider those to be real.
Oh, what? A woman admitting to hypergamy? No, never.
Everything is noteworthy when it comes to body language analysis. Note that Ellen displays asymmetrical eye blinking.
Yeah, asymmetrical eye blinking, another form of cognitive transition. It's like you're using some functions in your shadow and then some functions in your subconscious simultaneously, basically. Different cognitive axes trying to pipe their way through orbits.
And has done so several times.
This is really more explicable, like when you look at cognitive circuits, according to Ego Hacking Your Fear, as they're explained at egohackingyourfear.com. And I would say that she's like attempting to use the silver bullet of expert intuition trickster. Because it's more like, oh, this could happen, this could be a thing. You don't know. So I'm just going to say it to you.
Times throughout the interrogation up to this point. As part of a standard neurological examination, practitioners document asymmetrical facial movement, including eye blinking, as well as out-of-the-ordinary ocular movement. Blinking is controlled by the nervous system, specifically through voluntary neural control in the autonomic nervous system. This could be a sign of a neurological, neuropsychological, or psychological issue, as well as
Yeah, I mean, it is indicative of developed unconscious focus.
medication or drug use. Overtiredness may also cause asymmetrical eye blinking, and Ellen has purportedly been awake for approximately 24 hours or more. Although overtiredness is a likely cause, we must also note that Ellen displays other abnormal eye movements at different points during the interrogation, as well as significantly and consistently odd behavior.
Okay, another thing about asymmetrical eye blinking that you guys got to know is that it's also a strategic way for people to avoid eye contact, right? And unconscious focused people really, really have a hard time with eye contact. Most particularly, like here's a really good example. When you're walking around on the street and you notice an ESTP and they're wearing their aviators and they're also wearing aviators and you observe them, maybe you get to know them, but they're wearing their aviators more often or in locations like inside than they should, and they're not taking their aviators off, for example. That is a sign of unconscious focus, right? A heavy insecurity, basically. It's literally because they're trying to avoid eye contact, because Extroverted sensing heroes, for example, are projecting that onto others because they look into other people's eyes intentionally with an eye inferior, and then they believe that they can study and know everything about a person in the process. When the reality is, and then they are afraid of other people doing that to them, and that's why they wear highly reflective glasses, which is very common amongst extroverted sensing optimistic types. So the SE Childs and the SE Heroes, they all do this. Every now and then you'll find an extroverted sensing pessimistic do it, but it's usually if they're subconscious developed that they will do this. So just keep that in mind, like, just little subtle things about where people are wearing reflective glasses actually impact that. And asymmetrical eye blinking is no different.
We can only speculate what exactly this may be, but we do know there is a strong possibility that each time Ellen does this, she is experiencing some form of abnormal brain activity.
That's not entirely true. I don't agree. I do not agree with the narrator on that one. Not at all. I think that's akin to psychological prejudice or psychological bias.
Tell me about the boyfriend you had that your dad thought was too old for you.
That's another situation.
That's another situation. Interest-based statement.
My dad's just flat out, I don't like this guy. You need to break up with him. And of course,
I don't like this guy. You need to break up with him. Okay, yeah, likely story.
I want my father.
Has nothing to do with that. Has everything to do with you're having a sexual relationship with an overage man and you're underage.
Father's wishes for the person I'm seeing.
Who was the guy that was too old for you?
I won't give names.
So what was that
I won't give names. I'm an eye child.
circumstance, though? Tell me about that.
My parents are very controlling.
Yeah, they're very controlling. Okay, so that statement right there is very key because if an interrogator knew about Jungian analytical psychology, a claim, when a body temple person, especially a body temple wayfarer, is making a claim about other people being controlling, you can assume at that moment that they're unconscious developed just right off of that, because unconscious developed people have an excess amount of what they perceive as controlling behavior. Essentially, they themselves are being controlled, right? So subjugation, shadow pull within the body temple. So just that statement alone, it would be easy for an interrogator to assume that Ellen, in this particular case, or the subject in this case, is actually is unconscious developed.
My dad is very abusive.
Which means that at that moment, like what I would do from a social engineering perspective, is start pressing in on the introverted naivete on the other side and the aspiration pole, and then make it look like I believe that she's innocent and all these things. That way, as a result, she would end up, by establishing some faux innocence for her in the conversation, she would actually start blaming her co-conspirators and revealing even more information. That's what I would do in this particular interrogation. Let's see if this interrogator actually does that.
In what way?
Verbally, emotionally. When I did something that he didn't like, he would grab me right here and he'd pin me against the wall.
And then what would happen?
You know, it's funny that she mentions that because I have noticed a lot of extroverted sensing parent men do that to their children. And what she just describes, that might actually be something legitimate about Aaron Fryer, that the victim. That might actually be real.
Happen.
And then my little sisters would freak out and then he'd stop.
So
Then my little sisters would freak out and he would stop, which is extroverted sensing. And so she's the firstborn, by the way. And remember, statistically, firstborns have it the hardest when it comes to parents, because parents make all of their mistakes with their firstborns first.
what was being said or what was being done or what happened to lead up to him putting his hand on you?
I honestly don't know.
I honestly don't know. Okay. This is a situation where I'd be really concerned with that response, because it's like, okay, you're not saying that. And if I was in the interrogator's shoes, I'd be like, okay, I kind of know that what you just said about Mr. Fryer, the victim, may actually be legitimate. I'm going to ask that question, but then she responds that way. Now, typically, it would be easy or normal for someone to assume that she was actually lying about Aaron Fryer's behavior. But the thing is, though, is that when you're dealing with an ISFP, they're very shame-oriented. They're very shame-based, psychologically speaking. And due to the high amount of shame that they have, even when they are receiving abuse from other people, they're very ashamed. They actually carry that as shame with them, okay? And having been very close to an ISFP woman over the last 2 years, definitely it is a thing that they carry a lot of shame around for things that are not even their fault. So her unwillingness to talk about that particular situation further may not necessarily be her lying. It's more of just her trying to protect her ego from feeling shame. So that's just something that the interrogator would have to know in this particular situation.
I'd like to know that myself.
Well, I don't have that answer because you were the one that was there.
Well, like I said, he was drunk, but he's done it sober.
Okay, like I said, he was drunk. I do know that ISTPs, ISTP men, when they are intoxicated and they are unconscious focused, they do have a penchant for physical violence. So this may actually be legitimate in terms of the victim. This may be legitimate. And I would have, in order to understand the pathology of her criminology, basically, the pathology of her criminal psyche at this point, I would actually want to dig in deeper.
As well.
But what words were being said?
Like, you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That I disagree with, though, what she just said. Using a racist term with her father being an ISTP, he doesn't really do discrimination psychologically. I don't believe that's true. She might be projecting a different abuser in her life on her father, and her father's just an easy target. That could also be happening, and her response right there is indicative of that.
It's very emotionally damaging to hear your father tell you that.
Okay, so that's ESFJ shadow speaking right there from that perspective. But I'm not entirely sure it's actually about her father. Her father may have some culpability, but what she just said just right there, I don't believe that's her father.
And who all was there when that happened?
Just me after school.
Just me after school. No. Okay, so what I'm starting to envision here with Expert Intuition Hero is that she has this narrative in her mind. Let's say some male person at her school physically abused her, maybe even raped her and whatnot. And then she has a grudge against her father because her father was not there to save her, basically. And then on top of how her father potentially abuses her in other ways, especially when he is drunk, etc., what her psyche has done has basically, because it's possible that her rapist fled or is no longer in her life in some capacity. So she's taking all of the pain that she had suffered from her rapist, for example, this alleged rapist, whatever. And then because her father, she already doesn't really like her father and in general how he treats her. So then she's projecting all of that previous pain onto her father at the same time and creating an amalgam of pain, basically. And then FI Hero feels justified, basically, into doing this to their father. Other guy treated me because he looks similar to how that other guy acted, etc., blah, blah, blah. And this is actually something that FI Heroes do consistently. They do it consistently. And ISFPs, especially ISFP girls, they do it often. So I suspect that might actually be the pathology of how this criminal mind came to be within her unconscious developed, unconscious focused at this point. Let's keep going.
I thought you said your sisters were there.
Ellen shared only moments ago that her sisters asked him to stop.
So who was home when you left?
No, I'm not saying she's raped. We don't know if she was raped. I'm just using it as an example. Some kind of negative event happened with a male person that reminded her of her dad or acted in a certain way that her dad reminded her of them, and then she was projecting that pain onto her father on top of the fact that her father already has pain, okay? This is something that INTP superego does consistently. It's because INTPs have this perspective, if I'm going to do the time, I may as well do the crime. I've already suffered at this other person's hands, and my dad's suffering that he is putting on me looks similar to me to what this other person did to me, and eventually any trickster can see that my dad is going to turn into just as bad as that person as well, so I may as well make the same claims of what the other person did to me onto my father, because it will happen anyway, any trickster, even though it's false. But ISFP women can actually get really delusional from this perspective, and I suspect that is actually the pathology of what happened to this woman, basically. I mean, she's acting like an ISFP female rape victim. She's acting like one, and she is UDUF. That UDUF takes a while to take root in a person. She was abused in some way for her to be UDUF. We don't know how, but I'm just saying, like, that's how the pathology actually works for developing a criminal mind within an ISFP girl, especially an ISFP girl that young. But we don't have the specific input. I'm just telling you that's the process, okay? So hopefully you guys understand where I'm coming from here. So.
My sisters and my dad.
Okay.
Here she explains that she was alone when it happened. Investigators may ask the same questions repeatedly to look for the...
Yeah, repeated questions is just how you establish the differences between baselines and streams of consciousness.
Slightest deviation.
The thing about repeated questions is that when you're doing repeated questions, you want to ask the same question but using different words. Asking is a different way.
In suspect stories, particularly to those who display high levels of resistance, like Ellen does. Among the handful of Ellen's friends and acquaintances who spoke to the police and/or accepted our invitation to interview, 2 mentioned that Ellen was not always honest.
And she came to school one day with a thing on her leg and said it was from her sisters pushing her. But I don't know, because...
Okay, yeah. I actually had I had the pleasure of knowing an INFP high school student. She was 15 years old, and she would do stuff like this. She would make up entire stories, in order to get attention, right? Now, given that Ellen's father is an ISTP, he probably utilized her as a firstborn as a source of attention, even though she's not a source of attention. For one, she's a woman. Women are not really good at being sources of attention anyway, because women are not good at using masculine functions. Introverted sensing is a masculine function. Men are better at being sources of attention. Women are not, and especially given that she is an SE user, it's very hard for her to even use her SI critic for the benefit of her father's extroverted sensing parent. And given her father was not even around her mother, and that she was the oldest, she was the firstborn, it's very likely that he was using her as an attention tampon, basically, which actually, if he was unconscious focused, it's actually normal behavior for SP fathers to do to their children. I actually have an SP father who's a close personal friend of mine who actually did use one of his daughters in that manner, and that daughter also was a firstborn. It's just amazing to me that did not lead to something like this after a while. But again, when you're talking about pathology of criminology, there's a lot of layers that build up over time in order to create a UDUF human being.
Because Ellie has kind of lied to me before, which did hurt.
Jillian McFeeder shared the story of an event that occurred closely preceding Aaron's murder with police. McFeeder stated she decided at that point that she could not forgive Ellen for what she'd done.
She was telling her father that
Okay, so Jillian remembers an INTJ.
she was at my house when she was actually at her boyfriend's house. So I got a call from Ellie that was very frantic saying, "I need you to cover for me." So of course I'm thinking, okay, maybe something really bad is going on. So her dad calls me, and of course I cover for her, and then he finds out, so he ends up thinking.
Okay, remember from a female on female relationships is about cognitive asynchronicity. And Ellen is an introverted wayfarer, and Jillian is also an introverted wayfarer. And that's why INTJs oftentimes end up being best friends with ISFPs. So they're gonna cover for each other in this particular moment. That's why it happens, right?
That I was covering for her the entire time when I did not have a clue that she was lying. This one time I thought maybe she's in a dangerous situation. Of course I'm going to help her because she was my best friend and I trusted her, and that was the wrong decision.
Oh, yeah, well, obviously.
Jillian ended her friendship with Ellen after that night and explained to the investigator that she would never trust her ex-best friend again. She knew Ellen was going down a wrong path, and she refused to follow.
Yeah, folks, that's the thing about criminals, is that, like, criminals have this thing where when you look at criminology from a psychological perspective, they never ever see themselves as culpable or actually responsible. Circumstances that happen, it's just not their fault. The thing is, though, is that, like, from a father perspective to a daughter, or an educator perspective to a student, you have to teach young human beings that, yeah, things are not your fault, but it is your responsibility to do something about it. And you have to be responsible instead of irresponsible with your response to those negative stimuli in your life that are not your fault, right? And then give them options that guarantee success from the pack. This is one of the most important things you can teach children, but the fact that our society is not teaching those things to children, we have people like Ellen here who exist.
Here, sitting opposite a trained investigator, Ellen does exactly what cost her Jillian's friendship. She lies.
Yeah, sometimes we go over there by ourselves, and we just want to get away from the other two. Having two younger sisters is stressful.
Well, I mean, she conspired to murder. She had her boyfriend kill her father. That's what happened. She didn't actually commit the murder herself, but she aided and abetted and planned. So it's conspiracy for murder.
Everything's an argument.
The following questions are generic about whereabouts, the last time she saw her father, and some of her locations over the past 24 hours. Smith is establishing a timeline and frame of reference to compare it to what she knows about Ellen and the crime.
On the other side of the street from
We already know that.
Dairy Queen and Blackbird. And then you saw your friends. And what were your friends doing?
Just hanging out, being goofballs.
Okay.
We know that Ellen and said friends were certainly not just hanging
Okay, so luckily we're getting close to being finished with Ellen here. We're going to be moving on to Gavin, her boyfriend.
out, being goofballs. Ellen does not appear to be attached to what she says, seeming guiltless. She also comes off as equally removed from impending consequences. As an honors student,
Okay, being equally removed from impending consequences. Okay, again, when you look at criminology, that is very normal, but this is also extrovert intuition trickster. She's hyper aware of all consequences. Anything can happen, and because of that hyper awareness, she can also just choose to be ignorant, because trickster functions are aware of everything simultaneously. So it's not necessarily a judgment that the narrator can fairly make about Ellen in this case.
Student with stellar grades, Ellen has demonstrated advanced cognitive ability. She would need to...
Yeah, of course she is, because UDUF ISFPs are actually brilliant. They are insanely brilliant.
Possess assets like strong critical thinking skills, working and long-term memory, and at least an average or above IQ to excel as she has. If Ellen is intellectually gifted, we have less of an explanation for why she consistently tells lies as she...
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, that the fact that she has this advanced cognitive ability is going to make her look bad in the eyes of the grand jury.
Cannot keep up with. Her approach to evasion and resistance is persistent but not logical, let alone strong, and it brings up a question as to whether Ellen is in a normal, healthy state of mind at the time of this interrogation.
Okay, maybe the defense can use that, but I don't think so, especially with her being an AP student. I don't think so.
A more sinister explanation, Ellen could be doing this intentionally, manipulating the investigator and setting the scene for an insanity defense.
And then what was the conversation?
Okay, yeah, she could be setting the scene for an insanity defense.
Nothing much. What are you doing? Just walking around. You want to hang out? Sure. And we started walking.
And when do you think that was?
I'm not quite sure.
What kind of car does your dad drive?
Grand something?
What color is it?
Like goldish silver.
Okay. When's the last time you were in that car?
when he drove me.
She has reasonable suspicion that Ellen was in that car only hours ago with her dead father in the trunk, and she's probing for behavioral discrepancies between answers Ellen provides here and answers Ellen provided earlier when responding to questions unrelated to the crime.
When I parked the car at Walmart.
Okay. And that was, so today's Monday, and you said that was a couple days ago?
Mm-hmm.
What time of day?
We had to get something for dinner, so I'd say about 6 p.m.
And who all went to Walmart?
Okay, they're still establishing timelines and then trying to get the frame so that they can understand who actually has an alibi, who actually doesn't. Just typical. This is where it gets a little boring.
Me and my dad.
Okay. What'd you guys get?
Okay, she just contradicted herself there with her statement about me and my dad, because that's not what her narrative was at the beginning.
Meat.
What kind? Like, what were you guys making?
Oh, I'm vegetarian, so
Oh, I'm vegetarian, so even though she killed her dog.
I don't really care.
By the way, did you know sausages are actually the leftover pig guts? And intestines, and the heart, and the liver, pork chops,
Well, I don't know why the ENTP is even saying this in this interrogation room.
they're used.
Okay. When's the last time you saw your dad?
Yesterday. I'm too tired to keep talking. I'm really sorry.
You want to take a little break? Okay. Do you want some water or anything?
No, thank you.
You just want to sit
Okay, I'm too tired.
here for a few minutes?
I'd like a place to lay down and sleep.
Okay. Well, you just sit tight for a few minutes and we'll try to figure that out, okay? Okay.
Oh, this is where it gets interesting. Let's see what happens when the ESFJ leaves. Oh, here we go.
It may be difficult to imagine that this mild-mannered 15-year-old girl conspired to kill her father. She has denied knowledge and culpability and claimed abuse. She has likewise lied consistently.
Yeah, the abuse claim, it may have a little bit of teeth in it, but not much. I think there's somebody else, a third party that we don't know about that actually abused her that led to this.
Throughout the interrogation, many involved in this case seem to want an answer to a question they are hesitant to ask. Was Ellen truly a victim of abuse, or is she lying? We spoke to multiple sources who questioned why Ellen
All right, this might be interesting.
planned and encouraged the murder of her father, when other options of escape from the alleged abuse were available to her. They argued that she could have gone to the police, her doctor, the fire station, or other local sources of support. They asked why she'd not chosen to run away. They admitted that they simply couldn't understand what had happened.
Okay, yeah, because ISFPs are very hidden. They hide things. They're behind the scenes. You don't really actually know what's going on with them unless you stick an ESFJ or an ENTP in front of them and they could read them like a book. Then you'll figure out the truth. But in this particular case, it's not actually, most people, they wouldn't know. That's how awesome ISFPs are at manipulating narrative. They're amazing. They're incredible. While ENTPs are absolutely better, they'll manipulate narratives for themselves. And as long as there's not really many people for them to manage, their anti-child can do it just fine. But whereas as an ENTP, they just keep going and going and going.
Relevant to note that cases of patricide are extremely rare. The circumstances of Aaron's tragic murder were less than 0.002% likely to happen. This innocent, sweet-sounding 15-year-old girl is not a typical young teenager. Her actions were so unusual that even the FBI lacks the words to describe them. Ultimately, though, Ellen didn't swing the baseball bat that killed her father.
Gavin was kind of one of those kids that...
All right, here's the ESTP.
Kind of...
So now we're shifting away towards Gavin.
Everybody...
Her boyfriend and the actual murderer.
He knew, at least, because he had kind of a very specific outward kind of image that I...
Oh, that's really fascinating. Check this out. Look at how many blades he has. Looks like that might be a ferrocerium rod, maybe for some type of physical thing to make his NI or his SI inferior, or it might actually be the oil for his vape. Got a karambit, also a fixed blade, and then his EDC, wallet, keys, etc., necklace and whatnot. Okay, so these items that you see right here is typical of things that you would find on an ENTP. I mean, even right now, I have a lot of blades on my person. I also have everything that I need to smoke right then and there. I also have an additional snack. Like everything that you see in this photo is exactly identical to what I have on my person practically all the time. So this is some evidence that this man is actually an ENTP.
I think he was trying to display, very dark, very
Okay, Darth Vapor. He's identifying with Darth Vader, who is also an ENTP.
kind of shady,
Overall, he really was relatively nice, but just kind of a weird.
Yeah, because he's an ENTP. Okay, this is where psychological racism or psychological prejudice can actually come into play.
Weird kid. Gavin was a normal guy. He was really cool.
He's always outgoing. He was
Okay, here's Austin, the ENFP.
an open person. He was like, I don't know, he had friends, but he wasn't like popular, if that made sense.
It just makes sense that he would do something like that. I mean, he makes threats to
Okay, yeah, whatever, Mr. ESTP.
kill people. He obviously has the outward image of somebody who
Yeah, because he's a clone of Dylan Klebold, another ENTP.
it seemed like he was playing an imitation game. It's like the classic, trench coat mafia at your school. Like, it seemed like he wanted to be one of the Columbine shooters.
Many of those who knew Gavin held mixed perceptions of him from multiple.
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting how Heart Temple can just get this bad.
accounts, he seemed to be as much of a friend as he was an enemy, as normal as he was eccentric, and as outgoing as he was reserved.
As much of a friend as he was an enemy. Okay, that's literally the difference between FE Child and FI Trickster. So, chaotic neutral. One day I'm going to save your life, the following day I'll steal your car, from that perspective.
Some said that they noticed him changing over the couple of years leading up to Aaron's murder. Others said that he had always been the way he was. Regardless of whether pre-murder impressions of Gavin were positive or negative, most who responded to our request to interview didn't believe that he could have done what he did.
He was never like that, man. No one would have ever guessed that he would have been a murderer.
Yes, I am definitely listing ENTP loot tables.
In social environments, he can be cool. If you're just with him, he'll start saying that makes you think
Yeah, because he's pragmatic and you're triple affiliative and that's your bias. Shut up.
You shouldn't say that. Don't say that to anybody else. You know what I mean? Keep that one to yourself.
Gavin's behavior and responses to investigators, framed within the context of what family and old friends and acquaintances have said, serve as an opportunity for a unique insight into a crime that no one anticipated. This interrogation occurred less than a day after Gavin bludgeoned Aaron to death.
Yeah, so this is going to be really interesting. Let's see what type he is. Let's see his nurture. Let's see his motivation.
But shortly after he sits, he lightheartedly, mechanically asks,
How's your morning been so far?
All right. Extrovert feeling child right off the bat.
Busy. Yeah.
Mark this heavy contrast as our first behavioral observation of Gavin. He displays no visible signs of remorse, just as we observed in
Yeah, because FI Trickster is really bad at showing remorse. Let's be honest.
Ellen. Gavin appears unfazed by the seriousness of his
Again, FI Trickster.
past actions and present situation. Whereas Ellen initially presented as emotionally flat, Gavin teeters on the edge of jovial. This is the start of
Yeah, ESFP superego.
what is known as the Reed technique. The first step in such technique is isolation, which they've done for an extended period. The second step deployed here is called maximization. The Reed technique recommends 5 minutes of isolation, but Gavin has been isolated for hours, with the exception of an officer keeping a close watch on him. Following isolation and maximization, the Reed method incorporates 3 primary categories: fact analysis, investigative interview, and interrogation. As part of the fact analysis step, investigators gather the facts involved in the case and analyze them to search for motive, potential to commit the crime, and likelihood to commit the crime.
Also means is another thing.
Law enforcement will use both dependent and independent corroborating evidence in this stage. During this stage, investigators develop a full understanding of the crime scene.
So, me and Jim have spent about 4 hours with, you probably know Miss Mike.
Yeah, wow.
And Detective Stephanie Smith has spent about the same amount of time with Ellie. And I just want to throw some things at you.
Russell's still making the claim that he's Mike.
So all I want you to do right now is just listen to me and let you know what's going on.
Okay, what I want you to do right now, so this is an NISE statement coming from this guy, even though I think this guy might be like an ESTJ. And then he's like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll comply, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Step 1. Positive confrontation. At this point, the investigators have acquired enough evidence to reasonably suspect that Gavin committed the crime. As part of positive confrontation, the primary investigator lays it all out on the table, objectively stating the facts. He does this in an intentionally soft, soothing voice.
It's kind of like a good cop, bad cop thing, except the bad cop is laid more subtle.
To appear non-threatening and to give Gavin a false sense of security.
Mike took us out to East Antelope.
False sense of security is definitely what you want to do to an ENTP in this particular moment, absolutely. You make that SI inferior super, super comfy.
And pointed out the tarp, and we have people out there right now recovering Ellie's dad. He's deceased. Ellie's dad was basically wrapped up in a...
Okay, he had zero reaction. Zero reaction right there for the statement of he is deceased. Okay? He should have had some kind of actual reaction. Like even SI inferior cannot deny extroverted feeling child at that moment. That should have happened, but it didn't, which is indicative that he's the murderer.
A blanket and a tarp and taken out and dumped.
The investigator opts to use words that are non-accusatory while presenting the evidence. He does not say, "You took his body and dumped it." He says, "His body was taken out and dumped." The latter is passive.
Yeah, they're trying to find, again, they're trying to find reactions, basically. And he's not producing those reactions.
Voice is
although, again, he'd be better off sticking his nose in the corner.
Opposed to active. Controlling suspects' levels of resistance and defensiveness is critical to the success of an interrogation.
We don't know if this is something that's been planned out a long time ahead, or if this was just like last night, you guys decide to go over there and get Ellie the hell out of a bad situation.
Okay, he's trying to identify which degree of murder they're looking at.
The investigator implements step 2, theme development here. He frames the crime from a perspective that fulfills Gavin's moral justifications. This is the investigator's moral theme.
Okay, yes. So all the more reason that, okay, so the investigator at this point is an ESTJ, definitely using his FI inferior to be like, hey man, you know, morally it would make sense because you could have done it from this perspective, you know, any child as well, giving that options and then creating the theme with extroverted thinking hero.
Theme. If Gavin murdered Aaron, he did it to protect Ellen. This will occur and build as the interrogation progresses. The investigators pre-planned this, likely structuring it around information gleaned from other sources like
Gavin was only protecting Ellie.
We will call the investigators' theme development the hero theme.
This isn't a matter of when it happened, where it happened, who was involved. It's more a matter of why this happened and what was going on through all of you.
Okay, so that's any child and extroverted sensing critic. The battleground of innocence talking.
Guys' minds at the time. We don't take sides.
What's going on your guys' minds at the time? That's extroverted thinking hero.
In these kind of cases, we're basically...
Okay, we don't take sides in these kind of cases. That's TI Nemesis talking.
Truth seekers. We're here to seek the truth as to what happened.
Truth seekers, TE hero.
And Ellie has been 100% cooperative with us.
Okay, prisoner's dilemma right here. Again, you can never trust what an interrogator tells you, ever. And it's total manipulation.
Are you Ellie?
No,
What's your name?
I have the right to remain silent.
And then how long have you known Ellie?
Ellie, it's been almost a year now, I'd say.
Okay, Ellie, it's been almost a year now, I'd say. Gosh, the whininess of his voice comes off a little SDUF instead of UDUF. Let's keep going.
Okay. Boyfriend, girlfriend?
It's only about 6 months.
There's some information that
Only about 6 months.
Ellie might be pregnant. Has she told you that? Okay.
Gavin confirms that he was both dating and sleeping with Ellen. That is, he confirms that he was both dating and sleeping with a minor.
With a minor, yep.
It took a handful of seconds for this investigator to prompt Gavin to admit to a statutory offense.
He would like hang around middle schools. When he had turned 18 is when everybody like found out that he was with like a 15-year-old. People were automatically like, okay,
this guy's effing credit keeps going.
Bro, like that's not cool. And a lot of people stopped talking. And he wanted her at any cost. No one else could have her.
Because Gavin shows little resistance and doesn't reject or deny the investigation.
So no one else can have her. That would indicate unconscious focus for sure, because unconscious focus people lean into all of the deadly sins. Well, they have their primary and secondary deadly sins. The other deadly sins matter.
Investigator's accusations. The investigator can bypass steps 3 and 4 of the Reed interrogation technique, handling denials and overcoming objections. Instead, he jumps straight into step 5 of the Reed technique, procurement and retention of suspect's attention. The investigator must guide Gavin's attention away from the potential repercussions of the crime.
Yeah, and just focus on the facts.
And back to the main theme. He does this through minimization or through rationalizing that the crime was not that serious.
Yeah, using an ESTJ at this moment was actually a really good choice on the part of the police department.
Of an offense.
You guys are only what? 3?
An INTP would have probably been a little bit better.
3-4 years apart. A little over 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy on the left here looks like an INTP.
Okay.
Because of the investigator's redirection here, Gavin is back in the hero mindset. From Gavin's perspective, investigators are only concerned about Aaron's abuse of his daughter, not his murder. And Gavin has exactly the information they need.
Oh, this will be good. We need to learn this about Aaron Fryer.
Her dad's an alcoholic, and he goes and
Justification. Gosh, he sounds so SDUF.
and she said that he's beaten her and locked her in the bathroom before and stuff.
Has she ever told you that anything in regards to?
That was just recently. That's what set me off. So.
Okay.
That's what set me off. What an idiot. He basically just informatively admitted to murder. Wow.
This is a turning point. In just over 10 minutes, Gavin has fully bought into the hero theme. The next steps are crucial to the success of the interrogation. They almost have a full confession, but sticking true to the Reed method, the investigator immediately continues as though Gavin merely commented on the state of the weather. The hero approach to
Yeah, I commented. Yeah, exactly.
Theme development was Gavin's Achilles heel, his greatest weakness. His crime was gruesome and ruthless, but he seemed to desire to be a hero as much as he desired to be a villain. Among the dozens of friends
Yeah, well, that's typical of unconscious-focused ENTPs, for sure.
and acquaintances we interviewed, only one confirmed a possible
They all want to be the hero of their own story. They want to have their Darth Vader arc, basically. Go from the hero, then to the villain, then back to the hero again. Experience it all from an SI aspirational perspective.
explanation as to why this theme works so well for investigators.
He was very protective of the people he cared about. Actually, how we met, I was bad-mouthing a couple people, not realizing that he was connected to those people. They had pissed me off, and for whatever reason, I just wanted to talk, and he gave me a black eye.
Although Jacob laughed it off, the example he gave supports the theory that Gavin possesses a low anger threshold, meaning he's anger-prone.
Yeah, deadly sin of wrath is out, so he's definitely, again, more evidence that he's unconscious-focused.
Might argue that Gavin...
But let's see if he's subconscious developed. It seems like it, though. It seems like he's not really getting much unconscious development like the other ENTP involved in this case.
His actions display extreme loyalty, whereas others might protest that they served as outlets for his aggression.
When did she tell you about that, and what did she tell you?
That was yesterday.
What's your understanding of what he did to Ellie?
He basically laid next to her naked and started.
And then so you mentioned.
All right, so a claim of sexual abuse from her. I'm not entirely sure Aaron Fryer is the one that actually did this to Ellen. I think that might have been somebody else.
That kind of set you off, upset you. Obviously, it would upset me too.
This is an empathy statement.
Obviously, it would upset me too. Yeah, but it's extroverted feeling demon.
Something that encourages reciprocity.
Or actually, no, it's not an empathy statement. That's a sympathy statement from introverted feeling trickster. Just another example of how people don't know the difference between the two.
Establishing reciprocity, in this case emotional reciprocity, in an interrogative setting is a form of persuasion. If the investigator provides a small favor, the suspect may feel a need to return it, thereby lowering.
Yeah, which is really hard for extroverted feeling child to not avoid that bait.
Resistance. The empathy statement also creates an opportunity for Gavin to elaborate on what he meant when he said he lost it. But the investigator quickly moves on once Gavin responds. Linguistic analysis involves the interpretation of words and phrases in context.
Okay, yeah.
So is a transitional expression. The simple linguistic interpretation here is that Gavin wants to move on.
Yeah, it wants to move on. It's likely his shadow is just okay, yeah, I'm done here.
From this topic of conversation. The investigator intuits this and immediately resumes asking questions along the lines of the hero theme.
And then, so what was the plan going over to Ellie's last night? Was it to pick up her belongings and get her out of that situation?
To pick her up some stuff and get her out of there, yeah.
Okay.
He's held me at gunpoint before.
He what?
He's threatened my life and held me at gunpoint before.
Aaron has over at his.
Okay, Aaron did this thing to me. Aaron did this thing to me. This is where he's trying to provide himself justification for his own personal actions. Oh, when? That's 3 minutes ago, though.
Right. We're just letting people know before we
All right, cool. Thanks. All right. I've just been informed that this place is closing up. So yeah, we're going to have to, it is 55:45. So this is part 2 for the craziest interrogation you'll ever see. Thank you all for watching and listening. Like and subscribe so we can keep doing this. And I'll see you guys for part 3 of the stream later. So I gotta head out. And obviously got some more recording to do as well. So I'll see you folks later. It's been a fun stream.